welcome everyone to our Permaculture with Children session. And what's been happening over the last series of weeks is Ange has been sharing and hosting a series of conversations around different ways that we can approach being educators with children. And as Ange and I have been constructing this series, we talked a lot about the idea about how fantastic it would be if we could invite people to come in who've done just magnificent work in this space, to inspire us, to offer ideas, to answer questions, to open up discussion. And the first person that we've invited into this space is my dear friend, Leonie Shanahan. And Leonie Shanahan lives just kind of up over the hill and over the other, as the crow flies, maybe 50 k's. So it's not close, but it's not that far either. And Leonie is, you're also on Gubby country, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're here calling in from Gubby country, and I'm on the banks of the Mookaboolra, and I think you might be you're in Nindari, so that's Nindari Mountain, which is also an Indigenous name, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
No, I've got to find out about that. But anyway, welcome.
Birthing holes here.
Ah, really?
Yeah, just up the road, about a 5-minute walk or 10-minute walk. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Water holes, yeah.
Wow, amazing. So this session today, let me just give you a little bit of a brief intro to Leonie and why we've invited her here. So Leonie Shanahan is an author, an educator. She started up the edible school. I'm going to try and get it right. Edible School Gardens Project, because there's also the edible schoolyards over in the United States, and they're very similar. Edible School Gardens Project, and dozens of school garden projects all across the Sunshine Coast that she created. An amazing program, created video and a book that's come out about it, which I posted in our link called Eat Your Garden. Now, let's just jump in straight away into the video, because I think that will actually give you a bit of a better idea about what amazing work that Leonie has done with the children. So let me just find this. It's in one of these ones. Here we go. Oh, hang on a tick. Sorry. Let me just stop share. When you share, you've got to remember to click those buttons that say optimize video and sound. Okay, now I've done that. Okay, so here we go.
Hi, I'm Leonie Shanahan, and I am passionate about edible school gardens. I've worked in 20 schools, I've taught thousands of children this edible school gardens program, and I've watched it work. In this DVD, we're going to show you how to design, we are going to plant, we're going to grow, we're going to save seed, we're going to harvest that food and cook up with it. And at the end, we have a celebration with our whole school community. And we'll show you how to put all these different systems, the herb spiral, the no-dig gardens, tank gardens, and then let's make some teepees, let's make some arches. And you're going to learn exactly how to put all that together.
Salad's ready!
If they grow it, they will eat it. I encourage you all today to start gardening for the future of our children.
It's so great to see those gardens, because some of those gardens I actually came and visited when you were doing those a while ago, because there's a little bit more to your story too, isn't there?
There's a lot more to our story.
Maybe we should, maybe do you want to start and tell a bit about your story? Because, well, just before you do, I actually first met Leonie. We were both involved in getting the Community Gardens of Australia networking happening, and the two of us kind of coordinated, I think it was the first national gathering of the Community Gardens network, and so we started working together there, and I've just stayed in touch ever since, doing side-by-siding things and bumping into each other at different events, but always sort of watching out what each other's doing. And I think it's a lovely thing about having this bioregional network of educators who you just know are there holding space in different ways, and you can, you know, draw from each other's experience and feel supported in that way. So yeah, it's lovely to have you here, Leonie. Thank you for being here.
It's a treat. And I still, like, even looking at that DVD, and even though people don't understand the whole story of where I'm at today, but my heart just sings every time I see those kids, because I just know the joy that comes from children gardening, and the pleasure I had from doing that as well. So originally I started that program because I saw, like, I'd already studied permaculture and horticulture, and I was disgusted at what children were eating. And my children were only little. I think one was in the first year of school and the other would have been the fourth. And so that's why I was at school doing a little bit of volunteering in the garden. And that's like, I've got to do something about this. Instead of complaining about the food in the tuck shop, food in people's lunch boxes, I need to be proactive. So that's when I went and researched what people were doing in doing school gardens. And I came up with my own program, the Edible School Gardens program, which is a 12-month program. And I did that for roughly 12 or 15 years. I can't remember now. So I started in 2014, actually 10 years. 2004 I started. That was my first school. And we'll see some pictures of that shortly. And then 2014, I had to walk away from it all. Overnight, I just had to shut everything down because I got Lyme disease. So that's been my journey since then. I haven't gone back to school gardens since. And yeah, that was pretty hard. One of the hardest things I had to do was say goodbye to my program, because by me walking away, even though I'd had another girl work with me, that was the end of the program, and I didn't have time to roll it over to someone else. So yeah, but thankfully in that time I'd written a book. The DVD was published. We had professional filmmakers following me around for 18 months to and then put it down into 90 minutes. And now I'm grateful that all that happened, because it was a good program. So that's a little window into, so I've gone more into the health, but more than ever, I realized the importance of good food and getting your soil right. And especially these days where it's such a toxic world, that more than ever, we've got to get our soils right to get that nutrient dense food to our kids, to give them the best chance of being strong and their intelligence being there. So it's the same reason I started all those years ago, but it's even more important. So yeah.
Should we share some of the pictures?
I think so.
Okay, let's do that.
So this is going to give you an idea about the program I ran. So the whole time it has to be kids focused. It wasn't about me coming in saying, okay, we are going to do this and this is my way or the highway. So that's my book and DVD there.
Sorry, there we go.
There we go. All right. So I never went to a school and told them they had to do it. They had to, go back.
Oh.
You're too quick.
No, you've got to, this is happening to me all the time. Now, for those people watching, I didn't do that this time. There is an automated slide. I'm not used to PowerPoint. Can someone point me to where you change the animations? It's going on its own timer.
Slideshow.
Yep.
And just say from.
Yeah, but it's on a timer.
Oh, is it? Oh, I don't know.
Does anyone know how to change that? Transitions? Oh. All right, I'm just going to share it from here, Leonie, rather than actually it's a slideshow. I'm sorry, that's probably the best way. Okay, there
It'll make it easier for me because then I know what's coming.
Yeah, okay. All right, there we are.
All right. That's right. See, this is very organic, you see. All right, so I never went into a school and said, you need this. I waited for them to come to me, because unless you have that support from the school community, it's very hard to get it off the ground. And it's really nice. Like every school was so different. But when, this must be my keyboard making all the noise. When you have the principal that supports it and it filters down, that is heaven. And especially if you have a groundsman that supports it as well. I don't think I've had any school I've had the whole lot support me. But anyway, going back to the children. So I would come into a school once I've had a meeting with the teachers to let them know what the program is and that they're expected to support it. Then we go in. I always played games with the kids. And one of the first games I ever played was the blindfold one. So that was to get them to start to listen to what was around, start to feel and get an idea. Like they'd spin each other around and try and make each other dizzy and stuff like that. But just to get a sense that there's more than just our eyes. And there was lots of other games I played. Every class I tried to have some sort of game with them. And one of my favorites, there was lots of favorites, like the pollination game was good. So I had a whole lot of bees, toy bees, a whole lot of toy flowers, and giving them the idea that we need flowers. Another one that I loved was I had a map of the world and had a map of Australia, and I'd gone and purchased all these foods, like, you know, made sure they were from overseas, and then get them to work out. So I'd have these toy trains and ships and aeroplanes and tractors and stuff. How many different vehicles were required to get the food to where we are compared to, say, pineapples, which were just up the road, to get them to understand that food miles thing. Okay, we can go on to the next one. So then we'd start to talk about design, and I'd talk about patterns in nature, give them different ideas, show them different gardens and things like that, and get them to come up with a design for the school. And so that was always a very interesting exercise, because we had to get it down to one design. But it was really important that every child felt like they designed that particular garden. So here we get them into smaller groups, and they'd have to pick one thing from their design that they really wanted on the big design. And from there, we get those designs. So I was slowly bringing the amount of designs down, and then we get the big one. But of course, I had multiple classes, but somehow I sort of put pictures in their head saying, oh, herb spirals are really good, aren't they? So there was lots of herb spirals. So everyone felt they designed the herb spiral. And then what we'd do, we'd put it on a big piece of paper, and then we'd go outside and we'd mark it up. And this is what we do in any backyard when we're designing a garden. And they could see for themselves the star wasn't going to work. It was a nice idea, but it wasn't practical. So that came off the design. And was it practical where the pathways were, etc. All right, next one. And once we had decided on, this is, the film people actually did this. My drawings of designs never look like this, but that just gives you an idea of what the children might design. And then this school, maybe it wasn't this school, and all of them were really different. This was to look like waves because they were near the beach and they could see the beach. So they wanted that in there. So they all had different ideas. Normally they had a reason why they wanted a certain design. Some of them wanted the letters of the school in there. Others, like one school, wanted the love heart because one of the teachers had died. So we don't necessarily go strictly by the rules of design. It was more important for them to have ownership over what it was. Okay, this one. And then once we had our final design, then we would be approaching, well, first of all, we'd be getting the parents excited and sort of talking about, hey, we've got the school gardens starting up, you know, hey, have you heard about it? Do you want to be involved? Say to the kids, is there anything you can bring from home that can be part of this garden? And I'd say, even if you bring one rock, that'd be fantastic to bring more ownership to the garden and drop the expenses. And so we look for recycled items, even though often we had a grant for the project, but the more recycled things we could get, the longer the program could go with keeping me there. And then we'd approach local businesses and say, hey, this is our project. We'd love you to be part of it. Can you donate something? And never be afraid to ask for donations. It's amazing how many you will actually get. And then comes our setup day. And this is one of the most exciting days for the kids and for me, where we bring that design alive all in one day. So we ask for parents to come and help us as well. And it's a lot of fun. So we absolutely get everything done in that day. Next one. And here's some. So this was the first school gardens I ever did. And I had a massive amount of support. On the day, we had 76 volunteers turn up to help. And I barely even got out of my car and there was a TV station there to interview me. And I'm just super nervous. I don't want to talk to the TV. I'm just trying to focus on, oh my God, this is my first project. Will it work? You know, I've never done it before, blah, blah, blah. The last thing I want to do is speak to someone. But anyway, it was all positive. And so we ended up doing human change just to give everyone a job. And notice on the slide on your right, see how there's butcher's paper on the fence? That is one of the most important things you can do. Write the instructions up on a piece of paper. And I had several of those around so that because you're the one that knows the instructions in my case, all day you're going to have people saying, oh, we've done this because we mainly did no dig gardens. Oh, what do I do next? And I just go, that group's up to number 7, go and ask them. And of course it was up on the board as well. So to know how to do it, go and speak to them just to take the pressure off me and to make sure I stuck with the instructions. And the reason I do no dig gardens, and this is my own technique here, is school gardens, you're likely to be on the worst bit of ground. You've had thousands of kids running over it for years. It's normally hard packed. You don't know the history of it. You don't know if there's been poisons on it. So if we go above, you know, that gives a chance for the garden to grow straight away. And eventually that will be breaking down the soil underneath. Also, when I first started those gardens, I was competing with computers. They wanted all the money to go to computers, not to a garden. So I had to make sure that those gardens worked well and worked quickly and looked really good. So, and they did. Next one. Oh, that was the heart garden I was talking about. Okay, next. This garden here, this is like the castle. Here they had so many scrub turkeys. You know, we had to close it all up. So that was a massive job. Lots of volunteers to put that together. That had to be people that actually knew what they were doing, and yeah, created the garden inside. So that was good. Next one. And that just gives you a bit of an idea of some of the things in it. You know, it wasn't about looking tidy, it was about looking productive. And, you know, you might say, well, they're messy TPs, but it was about the kids doing them, not about getting it right. You know, the scarecrow, it gets a bit hassled when you're not looking, and kids just love to stick to things down scarecrow's pants all the time. It's just a thing. And anyway, but there, we know there was a lot of food growing in that, and there was a lot of pride, more importantly. Next. Yeah, so once we'd set up the gardens, then we had to wait a couple of weeks for them to settle in. And then it was about teaching the children everything about growing food, from growing from seeds, plants, the different ways of growing plants, pattern planting, growing on trellises, how to save seed, you know, understanding that a seed is, say, a zucchini seed or a pumpkin seed, is going to grow into this great big plant. So, you know, what's the distance between it? Composting, worm farms, eating it, always eating it. Most of the schools, probably 90% of the schools, didn't have a kitchen. So often the kitchen would be in the back of my car. Like, we just keep it simple, really simple, you know, and the kids loved it. Yeah, you probably have questions about that later. Next. And this is just showing, you know, the kids collecting the food all the time. It was great when we were growing, because every week we'd be going around tasting it. And, parents would say, oh, my kids won't eat that because, they don't eat greens. It's like, you watch, they will, because they've grown it and the other kids are doing it as well. Next. And one of the most important crops you can ever grow is a green manure crop. So here we've just come back from school holidays. So it's really good to put in during school holidays. So you've got some sort of cover happening, and it's not only giving you a cover crop, it's actually feeding all the microbes and things in the soil. So it's a win-win all round. And generally, it's not a crop you have to water all the time. So it should be able to look after itself during the holidays. And it's great when you first come back to school and the kids, you've got all these new kids that have never been in the garden, and and it's hot as well. So you've got a whole day of classes and you get them to bring out their scissors and just chop away all day. And it's an easy day, really. This one's been chopped a bit bigger, but they must have been the bigger kids that I gardened with before, so they're allowed to have the big clippers, and just chopping it all up and then turning that in and do that. But they thoroughly enjoy it. It's like at the hairdressers, we sort of say it, just clipping away. But it's a really important crop to put in. Next. And, I talk about setup was one of the most memorable days for the kids. And the other one is we cooked often during the year, but once a year we had what we call a harvest festival, and every school did it differently. Most went with a theme, and they was just so much fun. And we'd often get a celebrity chef in. You just ask, can you come and cook with the children on this day? You don't pay for them. And they often love it. Especially we have other events happening with it. I will talk about, I didn't realize this was going to be my last day, but my last harvest event. I'd been with Our Lady of the Rosary in the Caloundra for 5 years. The program's only 12 months, but I was still there 5 years later and loving it. And every year, more and more of the classes wanted to be involved, even though they weren't gardening classes. And I said, as long as the parents and the teachers get behind me, we can do it. And because it was a really good school, very community minded, I knew I could rely on them. So just picture this. Every single classroom has been turned into a kitchen. Parents brought in all the cooking equipment. Every single child got to cook. And every single classroom had to come up with an activity for the Harvest Day Festival. So once all the cooking was done, then we go on to the football oval, the school oval. And we had, on that day, we had a tractor. And I'm a country girl. I hadn't realised that a lot of kids had never seen a tractor. So that was quite novel. We had the baby farm animals. We had the footwear called thongs, like a sandal, throwing. So we had thong throwing competition. We had pumpkin rolling competition. And then they'd made up a harvest song and a harvest dance. So that was happening. And we had a cook-off. And I remember I had to keep running from the oval up to where the staff room was to check on some food that was cooking. I remember stopping halfway up the hill and just looking back to all this activity and going, this was everything I wanted in my school gardens program. It's community, it's environmental, because we were using leaves to eat off, which were going back into the compost. Like, it was minimum disposables. We'd gone to the op shops to get real forks, knives and spoons, and we got plastic cups, real plastic cups, as our harvest kit. And as a rule, most of those forks and knives, those real ones, cost us 5 cents each, cheaper than getting disposables. And that was another exercise with the kids as well on a rainy day after Harvest Day, going, okay, let's price up how much Harvest Day would have cost us if we'd gone to the shops. So I remember standing up there and going, okay, community, it was about food, community, environment, and it all came together. And went, oh my God, this was it. Didn't realize it was my last time though. But it was nice to have that realization going, oh my God, this is just amazing. And we'd have celebrity gardeners come as well. So Costa came a few times to those, and it was just wonderful. And then what would happen, the tables would be set up like in the shape of a flower, and then all the food would come down, and say year 2, there would be, say the flower had 7 petals, there'd be 7 different or 14 different plates of their food. So every single table had a representation of every single classroom on it. And as I said, they ate off leaves, so either beetle leaf, mulberry, arrowroot, something like that to eat off. And you can see on the long table here, we put flowers, we do decorations and things like that. Just a magnificent day, and they really remember it. So yeah, next one. And we'd have themes a lot of the time. This one was Indian, another time it was farmers. Farmers was a few times. One time it was dress up like Costa or Leonie. It's interesting to see the interpretation of what people think you look like. Although in some ways it's easy. I was always plaits and a colourful hat, and of course Costa's a beard. Yeah, so different themes, and it was just fun. It just added to the day. Next one. That might be it, isn't it? Yeah. So I just loved it. The kids loved it. And you'd get all different types. I remember at one school there was one kid who was terrified of gardening, absolutely terrified, and even to water. So I'd give him a watering can job, he'd still put a glove on. Like, there was such a fear of being brought up with this fear of gardening, and you don't abuse that. It's like, that's a genuine thing. And I just work with him and, slowly try and get him to, like, it's okay. But, my best workers were the ones that were called behavioural kids in the classroom, which suited me down to a T, because I was bored at school. So I completely understood them. And they were normally the best investigators of and record keepers of insects. They became real researchers because there was an interest. There was this out of this classroom, and yeah, so.
Gosh, thank you, Leonie. What a wonderful overview. And okay, I'm just there with you, standing on the edge of the oval with that description you had of that festival. And what a wonderful thing to be able to have created this incredible celebration, and the idea too of bringing in the celebrity chefs and gardeners, and just the excitement that's built around that. Like, gardening and all of this world of food is exciting and engaging, and it's where people want to be. And that whole systems approach. So the question, I want to open up for everyone to ask questions, but I wonder whether just as a first starting off question, so how much of what you were doing was, did you have a curriculum that you followed? Was it tagged into the curriculum of the school, or you just created gardens and that's what you did?
Hang on, there's something coming up on my screen. Just get rid of that. Every school was different. Like, one school really, they tried to bring me into the curriculum thing. I said, no, you're the teacher. That's your job. I've got enough to do in the garden. It's up to you to connect it. And so one school really went with it. They were fantastic. And they saw that it was English, it was maths, so they did lots of subjects when I wasn't there. And they said they couldn't believe the difference in kids who were no good at writing suddenly wanted to write about the garden. And I've still got one of the journals. I asked, it was funny, I asked the class, could I, was there anyone that would give me the journal? And they all wanted to hang on to their journals. Like, this is year 5. That was amazing. And there was that absolute, and the teachers were fantastic. They really went with seeing what I did that week and then taking it back to the classroom. And they really got the maths thing happening when we're doing design, and yeah, to another level. But as a rule, I just came, it was busy enough for me anyway. I'd have an idea what I wanted to do the next week. Of course, you'd always be hit a curveball, like it's raining and you've got to take all these activities for inside the classroom now. But no, I just, I was teaching them my own thing in there, and yeah.
So it was one day a week that you would go to each school one day a week, or how did it work for you?
Most of them, when we started off, it was one day a week. And then when I was at school at a school for several years, I was trying to wean them off me and me off them sometimes as well, to fortnightly, if possible, to get them used to doing it in between. Yeah. But ideally, if you're there every week, that's obviously the best thing to do.
I'd love to open up. Who has any questions that they'd like to ask, or something that they noticed in what Leonie had, and share a story from your experience as well. Fleur, go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, I trying to get into the local school at my son's school. I've just had such a blocks coming to try and get in there, and just hearing what you said about them approaching you. But the parents want to do it. It's more the school. That's the problems I'm having, But wow, this is really good. Thank you. What you did is amazing.
That's called doing what you love. And it just flowed as well. Once I had my mind set on it, just everything came to me, the right people. Like I said, I'd never approached the school, but the media loved it, and I was constantly in the media, which really helped. But what I would say, be persistent, because it's your school, and they've got a bunch of people that want to do it. There was only one school, actually, I think it was a Lady of the Rosary, with so many parents wanted it, and a couple of the teachers wanted it as well, that the principal said, okay, well, I have to okay it. A year into that program, the principal, he was a pretty cool principal, especially for a Catholic school. He came up to the staff room and started massaging my shoulders, and he said, I want to apologise to you. I never thought this project would work, but you have brought the community together, and I thank you for that. And so you've just got to show them examples. Like, not every school was great. Some of them were absolute arseholes to me, and I just have to get in the car and go, I'm doing this for the children. I'm doing this for the children. They're just, some people have got different agendas. But show them examples that work. Like, my book's even a good example. It's really simple instructions, but start small, make it successful, and then add to it. But start small, make it look good, make it that everyone wants a part of it, because it's success breeds success.
Flo, maybe you should get a copy of Leonie's video, and screen that as a screening at the school, or share it with the principal and teacher group or something, and
because I'm a part of the PNC. I've started worm farms there, and they had it all there. They had everything set up, but with COVID, I think everything went out the window, and they just got rid of it. So I started doing their composting. I'm involved in the tuck shop now, and as of this week, I start doing like a 30-minute gardening session with the chappie to do a sensory garden. So I'm pushing it.
Yeah, great. Well done, Flo. You are persistent. You'll get there.
Fleur, the school my kids went to, they were the least supportive of me. And that was the school I would have got the most donations. I wanted to do these amazing programs. And they just, even though they gave me my first paid job, because but that was just to work with behavioural kids one-on-one, so that you couldn't achieve much. And I'm working at the Catholic school across the road, like a year or two later. I'm winning awards for them for their school garden, and I'm just shaking my head going, can't they see what I could do for my own kids here? And it was always the worst garden I worked at. I worked that out. I think they always saw me as a mum. She's just a mum.
Crazy lady. I'm sure.
Laura.
Think I'm just...
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
Laura, I thought you had your hand up. You tried to jump in before. Yeah, go ahead, Laura. Thanks, Fleur.
Yes, thanks, Morag, and thanks, Leonie, for your inspiring presentation. I would be interested to know how the funding worked for you when it comes to resources and also your role being paid for.
Yeah. There was two main ones. Unfortunately, I call it bad money turned into good. The gambling funding group, they have big buckets of money here that they give out, every year. So we get $25,000 for the program and for the equipment. So that did a lot. And then the other one, which you could tap into all over the world, is slow food, because they're very much into promoting that, they're doing all this amazing stuff with food. And so that's another one I would be tapping into. Otherwise, it's just a matter of just seeing what's out there. There's little bits of funding in Australia, like there's Landcare, and there's sometimes the post office or something, and just little bites. But it's much nicer if you get a big chunk and you can get the whole program off the ground. But initially, that first one or two, that first school, Palmwoods, we had done everything right to get this funding. We'd spoken to the people as well, and we didn't get it. And everyone was devastated. And the principal, she's just an amazing lady, and she said, "We'll make it happen. Don't worry, Leon, we're going to make it happen." And that's when we just combed the community for funding and stuff like that. And, we got a whole heap of donations, and then we got those, 70 something volunteers as well. So, it was devastating, but it ended up being one of the best programs as well.
I think that's a really important lesson, that, that idea of, we were talking about that this morning in the class that was, some people are here from a class that we ran earlier today, and talking about this, creating this kind of ecosystem around you, which includes, the other organizations that are in your neighborhood, or the businesses that you're talking about, or the community, and you're not just this school that's sitting there on that block of land. You exist within a community, a place, a network of amazing resources. And it's like you're just saying, like, if you've got the courage to go and ask, and you have a vision, a clear vision with a clear purpose, and this is what we're going, and here's some photos of what's possible, that can really help to just unlock so much. And I think too, maybe now, possibly more than what it was when you first got started there, the idea of crowdfunding could possibly be a whole lot more as well.
And also, back when I was doing it, it was still a new concept. And that school I was talking about, I had no evidence I could do it. It was just all in my mind. This is what I want to do. So I couldn't even show them that that I could come up with the goods. It was all just me just going, "Oh, this is my plan." But these days it's so much easier to get funding, because people know what a school gardens is now. They understand it. They understand, and you really got to push the health benefits for kids: exercise, sunlight, proper food. It's crazy that a lot of money isn't going towards it. But at least you don't have to explain what it is. That's a good start. So, and there's statistics out there now that, well, there should be, showing that the benefits of it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of research that's been done since that time, which is fantastic. And before Ange jumps in, I just thought I'd quickly say, how did you get so much media attention? Did you pitch to tell the story, or did they see what you were doing and then go, "Oh, that's interesting"? So was it which way did that happen?
Actually, I'll tell you something funny. So I realized if I was going to get funding, I had to speak. So I was giving a talk, I think it was a Permaculture Day or something. Anyway, I was terrified of speaking. It's hard to believe, but I was. And I had to keep going outside because the speaker in front of me was running late. So that didn't help my nerves one little bit. So there was like extra 15 minutes. And I'd go outside because I thought I was going to vomit. Anyway, it was horrible, and you sort of shake it off. So I spoke, and then people came up to me afterwards and said, what you had to say was really good, but you were so nervous. We could barely understand what you were saying. And it just happened that the next Monday I was going to the library and there was this group outside called Toastmasters. And I said, what is Toastmasters? And they said, speaking group. So I went along to the meeting and I was so nervous. I wouldn't even get up and say my name. Someone had to introduce me. So I stuck out the Toastmasters. Then I went to the national speakers for a while. And then, once I got my confidence, I loved it. But that was the first thing. I knew I had to learn how to speak because I had a message. And then what happened, I don't know, I just seemed to find, the media found me. I never went to them. They always found me and they just loved it. They loved the stories. They loved that these projects were happening. And because you have a celebrity, like Matt Galinsky was involved with one of the schools, I had names attached to it, but as a rule, it was mainly me. And because I was winning awards all the time. So that was getting in the media.
What kind of awards were you winning, Leonie?
My favorite one was, I've got to remember them now, like the environmental awards.
The Glossies Award. We were there together in the Glossies, weren't we?
That was the achievement for my years of work. But there was the Glossies one at Noosa, and I actually wasn't there for it. I came later because they didn't tell me I was getting an award. It was a special award, and it was one of my most proudest moments, even though I wasn't there to actually get it, because it was acknowledging all the work and determination and what I had to go through to get these projects. I walked around with that award like a new Barbie doll as a 5-year-old. And everyone would go, if someone said, I took it to the market on the Sunday morning, and they go, oh, how are you, Leonie? Just normal, like, how are you? And I go, oh, look what I've got. I did it for weeks. I just show off this because I was so proud because I knew how hard I'd worked to get it. So it was just constantly, I can't remember all the awards now. But, every one of them, I was so proud because I knew I'd worked so hard for them. And it was a program that was so important to me.
What you're saying about, being in the media is important. So like, if you've got a good project, if they're not approaching you, like pitch your story, because people want to hear these sorts of stories. Invite people in who are, who can help to bring that attention to it. And, there are awards around, and, quite often, someone in your group might nominate you, but often you need to nominate yourself for awards. And I always thought that you got nominated and awarded stuff. Then I realized, no, you actually have to sign yourself up for awards, which seems a little bit, obviously not for the achievement awards, but for, the little ones that I, had seen around the place. So I think it's an important thing to go and find a way to amplify the voice of these projects. And, whether it be radio, TV, newspaper, award ceremonies, permaculture networks, like the Permaculture Noosa group that you're involved in, it's got, hundreds of people involved in that kind of network, which is fantastic too. Sorry, Ange, I know you were trying to jump in before and I just blasted my way in there. So go ahead.
That's all good. Thank you, Morag. Actually, the question that you asked was the question I was going to ask about garnering media attention. So I'm just going to pivot a little bit. And I actually listened to this TED Talk yesterday. I just wanted to bring a small anecdote. Basically, what I'm noticing is that you were just so much in your element, and then you attracted the people that would help you with that. And the person in this TED Talk yesterday was saying that, like, a flower doesn't go chase the bee. A flower blooms and becomes its best self, and then the bees come to it. And I just think that's a really beautiful image, of course, because it's related to a garden, but it's just very clear to how your journey.
And and doing something novel, so the media wants to come. And most of the time they don't turn up these days anyway. You just do your own media and send it through to them. So, think of ways that are going to be interesting, to the kids as well. But it's good news. It's always a good news story, so that's a positive as well. How can you get in those papers? How can you keep just showing up? as well.
But I think there's something too about you being that flower blooming there and attracting all the buzzy bees of all the kids around you. I mean, you had your beautiful big colourful hats and your pigtails out there, and you just glowing with the love of what you were doing. And that I think is so attractive. Attracts so much positive energy to that. And I know that you were saying it's, you know, not without its trials and tribulations as well, but you know, that I guess it's that intent and the heart of it. Like, where were you coming from with that project? And that kind of shone through and created the core of that.
I'm definitely passionate about it. And now I look back and go, you know, because often I was doing 3 schools, and those days in between were running around, you know, picking up stuff for the schools, and it just didn't stop. And then you'd have all the emails at night to reply to from different schools. And I look back now, and I had children, so running them around to dancing and everything else as well. I look back now and go, how did I do that? I just didn't stop. And then the book came out, and I was going to all over the East Coast doing book launches and talks and stuff.
But maybe you could talk us a little bit about that, because there's also people in this group who are interested in writing, and, you know, and also writing for children as well. So what's been your process? Because I know you've got a couple of other books out as well. Like, what's been your process of writing and getting published?
Well, I'm self-published, so that's hard work. Well, the book came about, Eat Your Garden. There's this one. Down. I was thinking, how do I make it easier for the transition from me being in a school and then leaving? So I thought, well, I need to do a manual for them. So I did up this manual, and then I gave it out to a few friends at Permaculture and said, can you please proofread this, you know, be really harsh on me? And they all came back with the same message. This is not a manual, this is a book. And so then I went to a local publisher who was great, and I gave it to him, and I could see he's trying to say something, but trying to work out how to say it to me. And he said, Leonie, this is just words on the paper. Put photos to it and you'll have a beautiful book. He says to put it down, give yourself a rest. You're rushing it to get it ready for the Garden Expo. And so I did that, and happened to, as the universe did, I just started a new school, and there's this mum that kept hitting a big camera, kept getting down on the ground, taking pictures. And every time I saw her, I was like, that's exactly the picture I'd want. And so I went up to her and said, look, I'm doing this book and I need photos, you know, could I pay you for your photos? And she just grabbed me and said, I've always wanted to be in a book. I will be your photographer. And she was a beautiful photographer. So, and I'm just so lucky. She'd never done a book before. I'd never done a book before. And the publisher had never done a color book before. So, and he said, how do you want it laid out? I said, I don't know. It's just like, can't I just write it? Why do I have to make all these decisions? And I said, just make it like no other book. Make it beautiful, make it like no other book. And he did a sensational job. Certainly like no other book, with all the different hints and all the different colors and photos. Yeah, and then of course it comes out and you realize you have to promote it as well. It's like, do I get a break? And look, and promoting is really hard. And back then, maybe social media was around, but I probably wasn't on it, a bit like now. But you know what? The difference, publishing a book takes you to another level of professionalism. And that's how I got to meet Costa. He contacted me and said, I love your book. I'd love to meet up with you. I said, careful what you wish for. We're both speaking in Sydney at the same event next month. So
just for people who don't know, Costa, those of you who are not Australian, Costa is the lead of the ABC Australia's Gardening Australia show, and he was voted to be the Australia's most popular TV celebrity, which is an amazing thing. Like a little garden gnome kind of looking guy who talks on a gardening program, is Australia's most popular celebrity a couple of years ago, and people love him. They absolutely adore him. And wherever he goes, he's just so present and in the community. He's just talking to everyone everywhere, sharing stories. Goes and meets a group over there, then he goes to the next group and he tells that story there, and he just keeps going around and he shares the stories on TV. He's inspired by his Greek grandparents, and anyway, so wherever he goes, there's just like this flock of kids following him along, because he's also on a permaculture for children television show called Dirt Girl World, and he's actually the garden gnome in that. And Dirt Girl World, if you haven't seen it, I really highly recommend it. Kate McQuillan, who is you'll find an interview with her on my podcast. She is the brilliant director behind Dirt Girl World. And so it doesn't sort of say this is a permaculture kid show. It's Dirt Girl World. And there's what is it, Grubby, and what's the Dirt Girl and Grubby. And so there's all these characters, and it's all about soil and gardens and turning waste into, like sort of appropriate tech stuff. And then there's songs and there's dances and the waggle dance of the bees and all of this stuff. It's a total permaculture show across the nation, and it's awesome. So grab a look at that. I wonder whether you can see it from where you are if you're not here in Australia. But anyway, so so Costa, having someone like Costa as your champion is a really good thing. If Costa comes in and says, look, I love what you're doing, and he starts to speak it up, then that's that's sort of part of that ecology of communication as well. And it's not like you went out and sought Costa.
No, he came to me.
Yeah. And so that's the thing about you must be a very bright, shiny flower.
Well, he does
big APACA, big landing pads, with lots of space for people to land on.
When he was my MC when I launched my Lyme Disease Sucks book, and it was hilarious because he goes, let me just tell you what Leonie was like before she had Lyme's. He goes, she was just as crazy as me with her energy. And she'd pick me up from the airport and go, right, we're going to 6 schools today. Off we go. He goes, and when I go up in the morning, she'd go, here's your garlic for garlic and lemon shot for the day. I'm trying to break in going, you've got to have garlic to protect yourself from the evil thing. Just anyway, it was quite hilarious. And I thought, yeah, well, we both did have similar energy back then, just so driven and with projects and stuff. But anyway, going on, so I got to meet him, and then I got to meet most of the Gardening Australia, like the other presenters. So the book just took me to another level, and it organizes. You have to organize all your information because you've got to have it very clear to publish it, because once it's on paper, that's it. And then I was lucky with the DVD. That was, like I said, the film crew followed me around, and I've only ever watched this once, and that was to approve it. Very hard to watch yourself. And then when I got Lyme disease, like I had said at the time I got the results and just in the fetal position for days, and then I went, okay, find out how to get well naturally and go out and teach others how to get well. So I didn't know what that was going to be, but that turned out to be a book. And then the latest one is Elevate Your Energy. So all self-published. You think I would have learned from the first one, don't get self-published, because it means you have to, but you if there's 2 people, like I do a lot of public speaking, not so much now, but I'm getting back to that stage. If you've got 2 people out there and they don't, you're just names on a piece of paper, and one's published a book, you know who they're going to book, don't you? Well, hopefully me. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Are you part of the media network as well? There's with Annette McFarlane and all of that.
Oh yeah, group. Horticultural Media
Association. So that then opens doors as well for different things.
Yeah, and I write for ABC Organic Gardener magazine as well. So I'm their regular writer for this area and tropics. But and that's right, because then you've got access to green rooms and all this other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm wondering if anyone else has any questions that they would like to ask you about school garden programs, or, you know, you talked a lot about, let me just run through a couple of the topics. I was taking notes. There was things like, you know, games, the design process, ownership, donations, permablitz days, being clear with instructions, getting things to get going really quickly, being a quick growing thing to be visibly there, managing holidays, oh, and yeah, the whole outdoor, the feast days, that was a big thing. And then I was sort of wondering too about where's my question here? Yeah, like what happened during the week? Were the kids allowed into the gardens as well? Were they allowed to play in the garden, or was it just garden day space? And then
once again, that varied from school to school. So some of them it was access all the time, and other ones it was off limit because teachers couldn't supervise. Yeah, so it did vary. I'd be happier if they had access all the time.
Yeah, create fairy gardens down the garden at lunchtime.
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. I was most of my schools were an hour away from me. I remember getting petrol one morning and just seeing all these kids buying Red Bull and just chocolate and just Coke and all these horrible things like this, 7 o'clock in the morning. And then, you know, driving to the school, and at this particular school, I used to be able to drive right up to the garden, and I came around the corner, and there's all these kids picking the snow peas. And I'm like, yes, you know, that's what I want to see. Not these horrible foods. They knew that this was good food. And I'm okay if they pick it all before I arrive. That's what it's there for. So, yeah, that, you know, there's just different things like that where you know you're making a difference. It's got to make that a priority.
What would you suggest for people in terms of, you know, some key tips of getting started, you know, if you're wanting to do that sort of project? Like, what would you distill as being?
Search out for some teachers that want to be involved. Make it, you know, tell them it's not more work for them, because that's their first thing. I just can't do anything else. Look for your champions, and, you know, you'll have champion kids and really engage them and maybe give them certain control. But like I was saying, start small, you know, and preferably visible as well. If that people can see it when they drop their kids off, even better. Yeah, that's the main things I would say.
Yeah, great.
I can think of, but yeah.
Deb, go ahead.
Put something, in the newsletter, like, oh, this week we've done this, and just keep the momentum going in their visit, you know, in their eyeballs all the time.
Stay present. Yeah. Be visible and continue to be visible. Yeah. Yeah, that's really good advice. Deb, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, that was a great talk. Thanks, Leonie.
My pleasure.
Does your model work for high schools? I've got the impression you're concentrating on primary schools.
I went into a couple of high schools, but was always very short term because they did the, you know, just one period of agriculture or something like that. So my program didn't really work, and I didn't really want to work with high school, you know, because they're all taller than me. I really think you have a lot more control if at least you're as tall as them. Like I was only a size 8, 5'1" person. I didn't want people all looking above me. Look, the high schools I did, the teachers were fantastic, but we just went in and did quick programs, and yeah. So I can't say I've got experience. There are definitely the Living Classroom, Aaron and Dan, they do brilliant. They've done high school work, and their program is absolutely brilliant.
We'll invite them into another time.
Yeah. So they can give you more advice on high school.
Yeah, wonderful. Ange, go ahead. Thanks, Deb.
Hello, me again. I had a question about the funding and the grants, because I know you mentioned that there were grants, and I also ran a school garden in Oregon in the US, and I got grants there too. And I'm just wondering, because I was like an employee at the school, so it's a bit different than how you're doing it, where you're going into schools. And I'm wondering if with the grants, whether you did all the grant work yourself, or whether you did it with the schools, or whether the schools did it completely without you. You know, like, how was the funding process of that? And also, did you mostly work in public schools, or did you work in private schools too? Like, I'm just curious, because, like, you know, you said earlier that the teachers are going to be like, oh, I can't take this on, I have too much work. And then a lot of schools are going to be like, oh, we can't fund this. So I'm just wondering, that would be like the big block that I could envision of schools not going for it initially. Yeah.
I have nothing to do with funding. I do not want to touch paperwork. So, and they have to show a commitment as well. Like, to work, they have to show a commitment. So they did the funding. Like, I could say, here's the gambling fund, off you go and fill it out. But I never did it. The only time Slow Food, if I recommended a school, they'd get the funding. So that was a bit different. They were happy to sponsor me into schools. So they didn't give as much money. They only gave, this is years ago now, they only gave $6,000. And that was to pay for me, but the school still had to pay. Oh, I can't remember how we worked it. So that's how we did the funding thing. It was up to the school to find it. It was probably half and half, whether it was a state public school or a private school. And they all varied so much. And what was the third question?
I think that was it. Thanks.
Yeah.
I think it was about the grants and the funding. Yeah, I think you answered it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got to be responsible for, you know, making it happen.
Takes enough effort just to do the program.
Yeah, you know, and I go in as a contractor.
Okay. Do you provide like a cost breakdown of what the garden's going to cost, or do you like, we need 4,000, 7,000, 8,000 euros, dollars, and then to create it, and then they find the funding for that. So you go in with okay, got it. Thank you.
And if it's somewhere like I said, the gambling fund, which are happy to give big chunks of money, I say, think big, think of every single thing you want, whether you want a shed as well, whatever, because it doesn't matter if they give us less, but aim high, because you'll only ever get it once. Okay, so, you know, if you have that possibility, just go for it.
Yeah. Thanks, Leonie. Thanks, Ange. Laura.
Thank you. Yes, I have two questions. One is, and sorry if you mentioned anything about that, but one is if you integrated any animals. And the second one, about the maintenance, because you said you were there once a week. So was there any maintenance, or how did you go about that?
Okay. With the maintenance, I would sort of say to the teachers, this has to be watered. You sort of try and delegate what needs to be done. Watering was the main thing, really. It's not often there was anything else. So they have to take some responsibility. And if there was holidays, it's just like, okay, this class has to do this, or we call in parents that live close by, or neighbours that could help out as well. Sometimes the neighbours will help out because they might come in on the weekend and help themselves for a bit of food, which is fine as well. Now the animals, that's definitely chooks were very popular. Chickens, sorry.
I just thought I was on mute there for a minute, and I went, did you hear me or not? Just in case you didn't know what a chook was.
Sorry, Australian slang coming out. Chickens were very popular. And I have to laugh, this school I often talk about, that we've had the big harvest day. The principal he just loved this whole program so much. The only green space they had besides the garden was the oval. So he decided that the groundsman could take their stuff out of the shed and put it somewhere else, and he got goats in. So every day kids were taken in turns to walk the goats around the oval, like they'd get walked around. It was just crazy. But he saw the value, and then these kids needed to learn about the farm. So that was hilarious. I couldn't believe it. I had nothing to do with that. It just grew. Like, I had nothing to do with the chooks. and I definitely wouldn't bring chooks in. It has to be someone passionate on site. Like, you can't leave animals locked away all the time. And it was quite, well, it was sad. The kids forgot to lock the chooks away one night, the chickens, and the fox got them. So the next morning there's chickens without heads. And so it was quite traumatic. And anyway, one of the girls who had quite a harsh life, she was really traumatized by it. But thankfully, it's such a beautiful principle. Like, she just wanted to, I think one of the chickens survived but was traumatized. So she just wanted to sit with that chicken all day, and he allowed her to do that because that was helping her process as well. And they just every half an hour or something would go past and make sure she was okay and say something. So yeah, so it was lots of lessons learned. You don't really want that to happen, but yeah, it was interesting how in some ways that could have been good for her as well, because she was allowed to process it. But yeah, make sure they're locked up. But kids love chickens, absolutely love them. But there's only a few schools that have them. But yeah, and then the question, I taught rural schools as well. We raised chickens to eat for harvest day. So and they were fine with it because they were used to it. They had animals all around. They had cows and stuff and everything. I wasn't involved with the cows, but yeah. So different schools, different places, but if you've got animals, it's great.
Shannon.
You're on mute.
Hi. Loved listening to your story, Leonie. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I'm in Pacific Paradise, so my kids go to Pacific Paradise School, and you did a garden there.
Yes,
yeah.
and most of the filming.
Yeah, I saw that. It was wonderful. Yeah. So actually, my son's now in grade 9, who was a part of that, and he
right.
Yeah. He just loved being a part of it. It was wonderful. But so now the garden's still going, and it's still fantastic. And there's a wonderful teacher there who is really keeping it going. But unfortunately, I guess because you get changes in principals, you get changes in teachers. So the people who were once really keeping it going are no longer. But we're just trying to get together a bit of a team to get something going again and get some more funding and maybe grow it a little bit more. My son, who's in grade 2, doesn't get to be a part of it. Only the certain grades get to be a part of it. And that was going to be one of my questions, is to, did you include every grade? And as you said, it's different in every school. Yeah, okay.
No, because you don't have the time.
Yeah, okay.
And it's going to flow much easier if you've got the same classes all the time, because then you can teach them the whole lot. So
right.
Yeah, and normally, it's the keen teachers that classes come in.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess because we're doing just a couple of little beds with an arch and a scarecrow just for my son's class. A few of us parents are getting together with the teacher, but she knows nothing about gardening, and she is very nervous about the whole thing. The teacher is. So that was going to be another question: is did you ever do any? Yes,
it's all in here.
Exactly. Yes. Did you ever do any education with the teachers when you first started at a school? Because I guess the teachers, when you weren't there, were the ones who were responsible for taking the kids out in the garden and doing, the maintenance there and talking about the garden with them.
Well, they didn't have to do a lot. It was mainly if they would embrace it and take them all out to read or just to see what's in the garden. They didn't actually have to do much in between, because we did a lot when I was there. So you don't have to feel nervous about that. I forgot what we were saying. What was it?
Do you teach the teachers?
I'll teach the teachers. No. Yeah. No. Like I do at conferences, we might get up and talk for an hour or two about it, but generally not. And I certainly don't do curriculum as well.
But when you first go into the school and you said you had that meeting with the teachers, do you kind of run through, I guess, all the benefits and what you want them to promote to the kids too, to support you? And I
give them, a slideshow of what it looks like, and what are the benefits? This is what we're going to do. You are required to do a certain amount but I'll do most of it the first year, but then you need to take over this program. Yeah, you can't just, go off for a coffee when it's gardening time. You have to know what's going on. You have to, because some of them would just disappear.
Yeah.
As the teachers.
And the groundsman too. The groundsman at the school is wonderful, and he's been a big part of trying to fill get the soil for us, and what else do you need? And I guess
that's heaven. And I remember when I was there, I know the groundsman that was there when I was there retired, because he came and saw me at the Garden Expo, which was lovely. But that's such a bonus, because, I remember one of the schools, actually my kids' school, I was at netball training with the kids, which was on the same school. And after hours, the groundsmen had come in to spray poison around our face. And I was there. What are you doing in my garden? It's like, get out.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm wondering about over the school holidays. But as you said, if you plant the green manures and things like that, because I'm just worried about the soil really drying out. But yeah, absolutely.
And if you can't afford it, you just get a birdseed mix and put that in. I mean, it's not as good because you don't know if the corn's GMO or it's not organic. Yeah. Preferably, you get the actual proper green manure mix. That's the best one. Okay. But look, and that school was fabulous. That's a school when so that the film crew had been nagging me to film the program. I'm going, no. And then they said one day, we're turning up at your school. I was like, you can't just do that. And so I had walked into Pacific Paradise and said, oh, do you mind a film crew's turning up? They're going, oh, that's fine. We'll just find out the kids that can't be filmed and let you know. Yeah. It was great. So supportive. It couldn't have happened to a better school. Yeah. And they were really good. And we used to sell stuff and
I feel like now that you did that program there, now it's so much easier for me to go in with a whole new bunch of teachers and a whole new principal, new parents, to go, well, look, Leonie did this, for that period, and it was so successful. And my own son can attest to.
Whoops, you just broken.
It was like, why don't we get this going again? Yeah, I feel like that's going to be a bit easier because you've got the runs on the board there, and it was a real success, and it's still going. The garden's still wonderful.
Yeah. And you can start up your own one just for your classroom.
Yeah.
You get that out just outside your own classroom, so you have access to it.
Yeah, that's what we're going to start with. Yeah. And then hopefully everyone else will follow.
Oh, that's so exciting, Shannon, that here you are, the same school, that one of the same schools that Leonie's were. That's wonderful. I'm just realizing that we're almost at the end of our time together, and I just noticed that there's a question in the chat about your film, and so I guess the thing is that it's a DVD, and so people can order the DVD through you and also your book through you. Do you want to, I can send out the link to everyone to make sure that they've got it, the link to do that. It's not available on a digital format, so you get a DVD and you stick it into a player and you share it that way. So that's the way that it's going. And I'm going to ask the film producers, I was having a chat with Leonie before about this, whether there may well be a digital version that we could access, and maybe with their approval and Leonie's approval, we could screen it amongst ourselves. So let's see if we can make that happen. But I will be sharing with everyone the link so you can actually get a copy yourself of the DVD. Yeah.
And if you order the DVD, I'm not allowed to discount these because I don't own it. I just buy it wholesale. If you order the DVD, I send you, for no extra cost, a copy of the book. So that's the way I can do the discount. I can put this one as free. So
that's a very kind offer, Leonie. That's wonderful. Oh, thank you so much for coming and speaking with us today. It's just been a pleasure to have you here as part of this group and to share, this depth of experience and knowledge and ideas. And I think the thing too is like, those of you who are in the room now, we have people, we have Elias from Tunisia, we've got Lillian from Kenya, we've got Laura from Zanzibar, we've got you know, people from around Australia, please know, like, here's Leonie. She has an enormous depth of experience in school garden programs. I am sure that if you send an email to her and say, look, you know, what do you think about this? I'm just dropping you in this, Leonie.
That's
you know,
fine.
That you can ask, you know, like maybe Shannon, if you need some advice from Leonie about what to do with your school, whether, you know, you can keep communicating about that.
Yeah.
So
Or I can come and visit because,
well,
you know.
there you go. There's an even, maybe you could drop over to Kenya.
Yeah, sure. I love Kenya. I've been there. I love it. I love it. Not for schools, but I've been there. And also on the Edible School Gardens website, there is loads of information. It's a bit busy, the whole website, but there's loads of information about each of the schools. And, you know, I did get in trouble for one of the first schools that I haven't mentioned tonight. And because I used it as an education thing, this school wasn't going as well, wasn't as supportive as I would like. And so I talk about it. Anyway, I got up really high in Google and they weren't very happy.
Oh dear.
If someone Googled their school name, I came up first. Not really good for promoting your school. No. Actually, I think it might have got wiped off. But anyway, but all the other good schools are there.
Yeah, great. So I will make sure that I'll share into our network all the links of Leonie's work. I think I dropped in the main ones already into the event. So there was the book link and links to Leonie's work. So you should be able to find it there already, but I'll check to make sure I've got all the bits and pieces there. So thank you so much, Leonie. It's just been great.
Thank you all. You're out to do the work now. I can't do it anymore. So it's up to you.
Oh, I'm going to get a copy of your new book. I'm going to get online and order that. I want to read all those stories, positive stories. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you and good night, good day, good afternoon, wherever it is that you're joining in from. And thank you especially to Leonie for being here and sharing all of that with us.